I'm going to tell you just a little bit about the Hot Wheels lab setup. Here's our Hot Wheels lab setup. I have about 4 lengths of orange Hot Wheels track, and it is mounted on my laptop desk. You can mount it on anything hard and flat, like a hard box or a crate. Make sure that it's mounted about 10 to 12 inches above your table, right? And you're going to need to mount all of this on a table and secure it. I've secured my Hot Wheels mount to my little desk with a C-clamp, and then I have a big huge hardware clamp on the back. Notice that I used a hot glue gun to glue the last bit of the track down to some foil, which I've wrapped around this is actually a hard placemat. But make sure you have some way of securing your Hot Wheels track to the table without using any tape over the track, because that will create too much friction. So this is about what your setup should look like, about 4 lengths of track. You need to make sure that at least about the last 12 inches is secured flat on the table. I think 12 inches is probably a good amount. You don't want very much, you don't want a really long track at the end, because at the end of our Hot Wheels lab, we are going to launch them off the table and have a little contest to see if they can hit a target below. All right. So once you get your track set up, and make sure, like I said, that about 12 inches is flat and then launches flat off the table, you will probably want to put some kind of mat or cushion. If you have a hard floor below, I'm using a yoga mat here. If you have carpet, it's probably fine. Once you have this set up, you are allowed to take your Hot Wheels car and do a quick push run, where you simply push the Hot Wheels car off of the track and make sure that it rolls straight. You are not allowed to launch the Hot Wheels car from your track until the very end of this lab. If you do, you are disqualified from the contest, and there will be a prize for the team that gets the best score. So don't disqualify yourself. So once you have the ramp set up, do not launch your car. Instead, take some measures to make sure the car cannot leave the table, because you will be disqualified if your car leaves the table after you have your lab everything set up. So I've used my block from our friction lab, and I place it at the end of the track. Now you're ready to go for the first part of the lab. So in this first part of the lab, which we'll discuss more in class, we're going to be calculating what we think the final velocity of the car should be based on the conservation of energy. So you're going to need to be able to measure the car's height at the top of the track and measure its height at the bottom of the track, which should be very small, but there may be as small, like for mine, there's about 1/4 of an inch displacement because of this placemat that I've used and the height of the track. What we're going to do in the first part of the lab is use the conservation of energy to calculate what the car's final velocity should be at the bottom of the track. Notice again, I have my something blocking the track so the car cannot leave the table. That's very important. So once everything is set up and we've made our calculations, we're actually going to do some trials and measure the car's velocity at the end of the track. Of course, there is a little bit of friction both in the axle wheels of the Hot Wheels car and some extra friction just between the wheels and the track. So our final velocity will not be exactly the same as our calculated velocity. But it should be pretty close. There's a couple different ways to calculate the velocity. I think the most accurate and cheap way is if you have a slow motion camera, will be to mount the camera or to hold it very still. I have a cheap little iPhone tripod there that I've wrapped around a chair. You're going to somehow want to film a digital timer next to your ruler, so that when the car rolls by, you'll start your timer, right? And when the car goes zooming by, you'll film it and be able to stop the film and go back and look at the frames, and you'll be able to see where the car was at several different points in time. And that's what I've used to calculate velocity. There is also an app that was almost as accurate, and I will send you all that link. For the second, or for the final part of the lab, this is going to be our target contest. So once we have measured the velocity of the car at the bottom of the track, notice the bottom is level, right? We're going to use that measured velocity to calculate how far the car should go in the horizontal direction before it hits the ground. And for this, we're going to bring back our kinematic equations from chapter 2. And we will calculate how far we think the car should go and where it should hit the ground. Then every person will get 1 try to hit a target. You will get to place your target at the distance that you think the car will travel on the ground, and then you will get 1 trial to hit the target, and you will be awarded points accordingly. So this is going to be up in your modules. Here's our target, all right? And I highly recommend trying to be as accurate as possible when you're measuring. So you might want to use a plumb line from the end of your track All right, so we can use a plumb line to get the exact point at the end of the track on our mat, and then you can use a yardstick or tape measure to measure your distance wherever you think. So we'll measure our distance below. My apologies for the moving in camera here. So we'll put that down, and then you will tape your target to your floor or your mat, or if you don't have a mat, you can use a towel or something. You will place your target with the target zone exactly where you think that car is going to hit. Once it is all taped down, you will need to film your one trial. You will lose credit if you don't get it on film. So for filming it, I recommend getting down low and using a slow motion camera if you have one on your phone. If not, just use your regular video camera and film the car hitting the mat. And again, you will get one try. And points will be awarded as we'll discuss in the lab, and the team with the highest average score will win a prize.